Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy NeoStarling, and I am back here with another video. Okay, so I'm gonna preface this by saying one thing. I don't normally make response videos to anything. I've never felt the need to do it, nor will I ever probably do it again. This is most likely a one-off, unless people want to see more of this stuff. But I had to respond to this. I had to. And the only reason I'm responding to this, and mind you, this isn't any hate towards anyone personally. The only reason that I'm doing this is because I've actually been a fan of the Resident Evil franchise since I was a kid, all the way back in 1996 when the first Resident Evil game came out. I was instantly a fan, like right away, no questions asked. And I just read this article online where Milla Jovovich, if I said her name correctly, if I didn't, please feel free to correct me. She made some comments about the reboot of the franchise, the movie franchise, which she isn't very happy about. So once more, look, I personally, I'll keep it real with all of you, 100%. The movies are sort of a guilty pleasure to me. I don't particularly think they were well done. As someone that's an actual fan of the series, I think that they took a lot of creative liberty with just doing whatever the hell they wanted to. Paul W.F. Anderson, his together with Jovovich, that's how I'm going to say her name. So, that's his wife. And I believe that they got married sometime after the first or second movie. I'm not really sure. But anyway, this whole franchise of movies made a lot of money all over the world. So it would be disingenuous for me to sit here and pretend that they weren't successful, because they were. They clearly were. That's why they kept making more. And I'll tell you this much. I'm not going to sit here and be some grizzled fanboy that's going to be like, oh, well, you know what? It wasn't exactly like the video games, this, that, and the third. And that's okay. I understand that when you are creating a movie, when you're transferring one media to the other, right? I completely understand that people are going to take creative liberties. You can't make something 100% the way it was from the source material. Sometimes you have to cut corners, especially when you're making a movie that's anywhere between an hour and a half to maybe about 2 hours long. So that's completely understandable. There's no complaining on that end. But the debauchery and the butchery of the source material is extremely prevalent in this franchise of movies. And granted, I saw every single one of them. I literally saw every one of those movies in the theater because I am such a fan that I was compelled to actually go and watch these movies, whether or not I enjoyed them or not, right? So I enjoyed them as like mindless fun. As mindless fun, they were not bad movies. If it wasn't called Resident Evil, I'd probably even say they're good movies. But just like Silent Hill, at the very least, a Silent Hill movie, I know that they took a lot of creative liberty with that as well. But for the most part, it was still very similar to the games. Not the second one. The second one was horrible. But the first Silent Hill movie I actually thought was pretty good, even though they changed the main character from Harry to Rose, which was okay. It's whatever. I get it. It's your movie. You're gonna do whatever you want. That's fine. Either way, Silent Hill for the most part was still more accurate with its portrayal and its depiction of the source material versus what the Resident Evil franchise did, right? So I'm gonna read a quote that I found on this article. This was Mila's thoughts on this, right? And I actually thought it was kind of hilarious. So check this out. All right, so quote, Milla says, they've announced a reboot? Okay, well, good luck with that. I think a lot of people with these franchises kind of put the cart before the horse. There's a danger to that. They've been wanting to reboot Resident Evil for a long time. And listen, I love the Resident Evil world. I think it's great property. I would do it if I was a producer. I think what made Resident Evil so special is that the people involved really loved what they were doing and really were fans of the game. That's hilarious. I would suggest that you find people that have the same passion for the property before you talk about reboots. I think if you get into this kind of genre, people are very sensitive to fakes. There's some real fans in the sci-fi action horror world, and they're not idiots. They can smell when something is done because people love it, and when something is done just to monetize an opportunity. That's hilarious. Okay, so a couple of things on that. So I don't know if Milla actually ever played the games. I can't sit here and pretend that she didn't, because realistically, I don't know. And it would be disingenuous for me to sit here and say that she didn't play them, because I don't know. And as far as being real fans of the series, I think that if you were an actual fan of the series, you would have at least spoken to your husband and been like, hey, man, I get it. I'm supposed to be this powerhouse T virus character that bonded with the virus to the point to where I'm essentially a god, right? And even when they did remove her powers later on in the series, it could be argued that she was still a god because there weren't many differences outside of her not using any like psychic abilities. She was still extremely adept at hand-to-hand combat, and she was able to kick all kinds of ass, which once more I think was fun. I didn't think that was actually bad, right? So it's really difficult to talk about this stuff because I'm not really the type of individual that's going to sit here and judge others and make videos talking nonsense about them. I personally don't have a problem with with Milla. I think she's a good actor, and I've seen a lot of her movies, and I enjoy the movies that she's in. I think she's a good action star, and I hope her much luck with her future career. I seriously do, because honestly, there's no real hate here. The reason I'm even making this video is because I actually have a strong passion for the series. I just finished the Resident Evil 2 remake, and the Resident Evil 3 remake was announced recently, and I'm really excited to see that and play it as well. So a couple of things here. Once more, she says that they were real fans, right? If you were real fans, there were just so many things that were wrong. So essentially, the series ended up sprinkling a lot of the main characters of the franchise, like Jill, Chris, Claire, Wesker. I don't know who else was in it from the actual games. I'm sure there's some that I can't think off the top of my head right now. But that's okay. Let's focus on these characters in particular. Okay, so the first movie, personally, I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was all right. I thought it was a good introduction with brand new characters. You know, you were trying something a little different, right? You were sort of showing the exposure on how the virus actually took place. I personally didn't have a problem with that. It was contained in the hive, and I didn't think that was actually bad. And the second movie, Apocalypse, I believe, I didn't even think that movie was bad at all either. It was loosely based off of Resident Evil 3. You know, you had Nemesis in that one finally, which was dope. And that was also the introduction of Jill. Now, here's where my major issue with this is. Jill Valentine is one of the main protagonists of the series. She's appeared in several games, and she was also the co-star of the very first one, along with Chris Redfield. The actress that they picked for her, perfect. She looked just like her. They made the outfit look exactly the same as her Resident Evil 3 counterpart. And she had a really strong intro. She comes into the RPD police station. She pops some zombies. She says, "Oh, you got to go for the head." So, all right, I'm thinking this is dope. She's a strong, adept character. The Nemesis is in this movie, so, you know, he's going to be going after stars. So that's going to be like Jill's main antagonist, right? But everything was going good, and I actually thought Jill was portrayed as a competent character until Milla was revealed. When she came in to save them from the liquor, that's where it all sort of went to shit, because at that point, Jill ceased to become a character and she was relegated as a joke. You know, every time she tried to do something, Milla had to outdo her at every shot. And I get it. Milla, or Alice, we'll call her by her character name, because once more, I don't have anything against Milla. So Alice, I understand that she bonded with the T virus. This is a story that they did. So because of that, she has special abilities. So she's able to function at a higher level than most people would normally. Once again, completely okay with that. But the fact that you take all the main protagonists from the rest of the series, you did this with Jill. I'm not going to like do a soft review on each movie. I'm taking bits and pieces of them so I can build a story here for you guys to understand what I'm really talking about. Okay, so you took Jill, you took Chris, you took you took Claire and Wesker, and you sort of made these people jokes. Everybody outside of Wesker was probably the only real threat as far as like a competent character. And I did enjoy how they sort of recreated the fight scene that Chris and Sheva had with Wesker. That was kind of cool. I did enjoy that. That was a nice little love letter to the actual game itself. But once more, you have to understand that it didn't matter, because Wesker still ended up beating both of them, and Milla had to save them again. Now, mind you, at this point, she doesn't even have her powers. She just has the power of plot armor. Plot armor has protected her throughout the entire franchise, and is actually stronger than the T virus at this point. I'm convinced. Plot armor sort of beats everything. And so you switch these movies up so much, there was just no continuity to them. There was no sense of cohesiveness to it, right? You went from a hive to Raccoon City, which was fine. And then the third movie, they were like in a desert wasteland because apparently the entire ecosystem of the world got affected based off of the viruses. And I'm like, okay, cool. So Umbrella essentially destroyed the world. That doesn't really happen in the games. And once more, again, I'm okay with them taking creative liberties on certain things. That's expected, but after that, they kind of went back and forth so much with what was going on that there was no real there was no consistency at all with anything that was actually happening there. It all turned to shit after every movie. The only thing that I kind of thought was dope was at the end of one of the movies where Wesker supposedly gave her powers back, and Leon, Alice, Jill, all these people went back to the White House, and then there was supposed to be this big epic battle with like all these different T virus slash Plagas slash G virus slash all the viruses that they just decided to throw in there out of nowhere. And I was still okay with that. I'm like, all right, you know what? Cool. So at the beginning of the next movie, there's going to be some epic battle. So I thought that was cool. None of that happens. It already finished. The battle ended at the beginning of the movie. So once again, it's the Alice story. Now I can understand her concern. I genuinely believe that she's upset because she is the star of the franchise, and because it made so much money in her mind, she's thinking, "Oh, this was a winner. Like we did good. Me and hubby, we did a good job. We made some money. Everybody got a couple of laughs. They got a couple of scares. They ate some popcorn while watching this movie. Everything is gravy." But realistically, it's not. People were clamoring for a remake for the longest time because that's sort of the climate right now. If you really stop and think about it, that's the climate of the series. You just finished redoing Resident Evil 2 remake, which took forever to make, and now Resident Evil 3 remake is coming out. I would assume that Code Veronica is probably the last remake they'll do, and I think after that they're pretty much good. They'll just release Resident Evil 8 afterwards or something, which is okay. So, all these characters just disappear. Even at the end of the movie where Chris was finally introduced, you put Chris and Claire together, which was cool. But what was messed up was that at the beginning of the next movie, they completely disappeared. Like you don't even know what happened to them. So how does Claire come out in the last movie if based off of what we're assuming she's dead, because she doesn't appear anywhere. At the beginning of each movie, it almost feels like each movie in itself is its own reboot, because you spend all this time caring about what's happening, right? And then out of nowhere, you just do whatever the hell you want in the next movie. There was no no continuous flow from one movie to the next. You would think that's what he was doing, but he really wasn't, and that's what I think is kind of unfortunate. So it's like the people that are going to be doing the new Resident Evil movie, I'm pretty excited. All right. So we have the Aquaman director, James Wan, and writer Greg Russo. So they're the ones that are going to be doing this apparently. And I'm pretty excited. I think it's a good idea. Now, check it out. There's a caveat to this. There's always a caveat. I don't think they should focus, if they're going to make 6 movies, I don't think they should focus on making the story per each game. I don't think that's a smart idea. If you are going to make it similar to the games, that's going to be difficult because once more, if you try to put the story of each game into an individual movie, that could turn to a clusterfuck very quickly, right? That can happen extremely fast. So I think what they should do is take elements from the games, make the actual main characters relevant again, especially Leon. Because I didn't even talk about Leon. Holy crap. So Leon is arguably the most popular character in all of Resident Evil. He's the pretty boy. He's a badass. He is so many things to so many people. And Leon's actually my favorite character. Well, scratch that. He's my favorite male character. Jill is my number one, always. She's always been my favorite character, and she always will be. Anytime I put up a post on Instagram, if I do like a hashtag like Woman Crush Wednesday, I always put Jill because Jill's awesome. And I actually speed run Jill in Resident Evil Remake, the first one. So that just shows you like how much I actually care about these characters, right? Now, when Leon was introduced, he was just a joke. They shouldn't have put him in there. You try to put Leon, you tried putting Barry, Ada, and Jill. You try to put so many characters in the same movie that it just didn't work properly, especially when the majority of them never even interacted beforehand. Right? It's like, how did Barry and Leon hook up? How did they get on this assault team that was going down there? Right? How did Jill get that device installed on her chest? None of this stuff was ever explained. It just happened. Jill disappeared from the second movie. She comes back in the 5th movie, I believe. Or was it the 6th? No, the 6th was the last one. She came back in the 4th or the 5th movie. And she just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, what happened to her in between that? Her and Carlos, along with Mike Epps' character, I forgot what the name of his character was. They all saved Alice at the end of the second movie. So they're all supposed to appear in the third one. Logically, you would think that's what would happen, right? But somehow Jill disappears, and then Claire joins the convoy. It's like, how does this stuff even happen? Give me 1 second. I'm going to take a sip of water. This is a live stream, but I might do some soft edits on this later. I'm not sure. All right, that's a little better. My throat was getting a little scratchy. Because as soon as I read this article, I felt the need to make a video about it right away. I felt that, hey, let me take advantage right now while there's still heat on the plate. Let's do this. So listen, I hope that going forward, when they make the new franchise, if they are gonna do any portrayals of the actual games itself, as far as like taking the storyline from the games, don't try to focus on every single one of them. Just do a couple of them. For instance, right, you can take 2 movies to do Resident Evil 2 and 3 together, because since part 3 was technically supposed to be an expansion to part 2, and they were both taking place simultaneously as far as the continuity of the games are concerned, you can put those together in 2 movies and tell a full cohesive story about what happened in between both of them. And that'll actually be pretty cool, because then you can have that sense of togetherness where everything is just taking place and everything is put together properly. You can tell a good story that way. And you could probably skip Resident Evil 4 altogether. They would have to tell the story of the first one, obviously. And that could be a movie in its own, because if you really stop and think about it, the game itself, when the original game came out, it took about 3 hours to beat, give or take, right? Most of that is because you're running around back and forth. There's a lot of loading screens. There's a lot of door animations, and a lot of it is just gameplay versus what's actually happening in between story beats. So you can do the first game in one movie and still tell a good story. Now, let's face it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Resident Evil has had the best writing over time. It certainly hasn't, and we know this. But it's still a series that we love. It's still a series that should be taken seriously, especially when you're adapting it to the big screen. It is Capcom's most popular property, at least in my opinion, at this point, based off of the recent success of their latest games. Right? They sort of went back. They went back to form as far as like making a survival horror again. So I think they should take an important lesson from that. Again, the movies with Milla were not completely horrible. If you take them for what they are, popcorn movies where you can sit down, have some fun, watch some cool action scenes, and not really care too much about the story, then yes, you can absolutely have a good time watching them. But if you're an actual fan of the series and you care about clear, concise storytelling, and you want the main characters to have relevance again, because they all felt like jokes. None of them were taken seriously in any way, shape, or form. If that's what you want, then that's what the reboot should focus on, in my personal opinion. Anyway, I think I've harped on long enough about this. I don't want to make this video too long. I just wanted to give my quick thoughts, because once more, I'm very passionate about the series. I'm a huge fan. I even have a Resident Evil tattoo on my body. I can't show it to you because it's on my back, but I have an umbrella logo. Yes, I actually have an umbrella logo tattooed on my body. That's how much I love the series. So I'm hoping that the reboot is great. I'm hoping that they do a good job with it. I'm hoping this quote unquote fabled Netflix series takes place as well. And I hope that it's great. And as far as Milla's concerned, I get it. It was her franchise. She was the main star. So there's a little narcissism there. She probably feels like, hey, they didn't need to make a reboot out of this. All our movies made money. And once more, you know what? She did her part. She did all her stunts. I know that in the beginning of the first movie, I believe she had like real bruises on her because they wanted to make it more authentic. So she was actually like getting beat up, which is kind of crazy when you stop and think about it. The fact that they didn't play that safer. But again, once more, I hope that the new series is awesome. I can't wait for Resident Evil 3 Remake. I am NeoStarling. If you guys like this and you feel that this is something that I should add as an addition to the stuff that I talk about normally on my channel, please feel free to let me know. Because outside of talking about life, fitness, and motivation, I am also very passionate about video games, especially the franchises that I grew up with. So if you felt that you get any value from this and you want to extend this conversation, please feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, do the damn thing and help a brother out. Outside of that, I've been NeoStarling. You guys are awesome, and don't ever let anyone tell you different again. Signing off.